Battle through the heavens, Grand World. Chapter 201 Invitation. The Four-Spirit Emperor Law. When Xiao Yan saw the four big words on the scroll, the smile on his face became even wider. When he saw the monarch skill used by Chen Rong in the underground tomb, he was truly shocked. After all, the four spirits were legendary existences, people or things that could be related to them. All of them were extremely powerful. Although he didn't know where the inheritance of this technique came from. It was already amazing enough that it could cultivate the Four Spirits Emperor technique. He took out the scroll and held it in his hand. When he touched it, he immediately felt a warm feeling. The four colored patterns interwebbed and complemented each other. It was full of the charm of the Supreme Great Tao and the simplest of thousands of Taos. He slowly opened the scroll. There were no words on the scroll. There were only four images on the scroll: Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise. The images of the four spirits were vivid and lifelike. On the scroll, it seemed to be an ancient scene. The four spirits raised their heads and looked at the sky. The Azure Dragon was furious. The White Tiger howling valley, the Vermilion Bird burning heaven, and the Black Tortoise were roaring. The first impression the four pictures gave was that they were boundless and majestic. They were filled with an ancient and primitive flavor. However, when one carefully sensed them, they seemed to be missing a lot. When Xiao Yan carefully felt the scroll in his hand, the Xiaoao that had been soaring in the sky slowly landed on the ground. It moved closer to Xiao Yan and took a look at the scroll in the latter's hand. When it saw the four spirits, it frowned and then looked at the four pictures. The one at the top. It was a long azure dragon. The azure dragon was riding on the clouds, and there were traces of azure light flashing around it, as if it could appear at any time from the scroll. Seeing the appearance of the azure dragon, the Xiaoao could not help but be stunned. A trace of doubt and confusion flashed across its pure eyes. In the next moment, it pouted disdainfully. When it saw the smile on Xiao Yan's face, it yawned and said, "What's so good about this thing? It's just an incomplete scroll." When Xiao Yan heard this, he frowned and immediately became happy. He looked at the Xiaoao and his eyes were filled with surprise and joy. This guy's true body was like a holy beast, and he was also one of the legendary four spirits, the Azure Dragon. There should be a deep connection between them. Perhaps, he would be able to obtain more useful information from this fellow. Seeing Xiao Yan's smiling face, the Xiaoao stuck out its tongue. Its round face made Xiao Yan want to reach out and pinch it. This monarch skill, although it looks like a high-grade monarch spell, but because it is related to the four spirits, it should be very powerful, but... The Xiaoao pondered for a moment, then shook its head and said with some confusion, "I can't tell what the exact flaws are. You can cultivate it first, and then observe it slowly." After listening to the Xiaoao's words, Xiao Yan calmed down his excited mood. He wasn't very disappointed. After all, the Four-Spirit Emperor technique was related to the Four-Spirit Monarch skill. Even if it was just a small part of the technique, its power wasn't to be underestimated. This was just an incomplete scroll. Back then, Chen Rong had used it to kill a Death Spirit corpse guard with a single strike. If he could find all the scrolls, how powerful would it be? Xiao Yan really couldn't imagine it. Furthermore, there was also a Xiaoao beside him. In terms of familiarity with the four spirits, Xiao Yan wouldn't be able to catch up with the inheritance of the four spirits even if he flattered them. After playing with it for a while, Xiao Yan reluctantly put it into the storage ring. His soul energy once again surged into the ghost head ring and continued to search the neatly arranged items. The remaining books were mostly ordinary monarch spell. Although there were a lot of them, Xiao Yan was not interested in cultivating them. He still had to choose the one suitable for him to cultivate the monarch skill. For example, Xiao Yan did not have the ambition of being proficient in hundreds of skills. He understood the principle of biting off more than one could chew. He did not want to end up with nothing in the end. His eyes swept across the pile of books in a hurry. He automatically ignored the monarch spell level skills. After that, a red invitation card that was pressed under a scroll of monarch skill suddenly appeared in Xiao Yan's eyes. With a hint of curiosity, Xiao Yan took it out. Chen Rong was a monarch emperor level expert, and the invitation card that he had kept in his collection must be of great strength or status. It was a good opportunity for him to see what the local tyrant of this region was. Xiao Yan opened the invitation card and carefully read the words on it. He couldn't help but reveal a strange expression. As expected, the person who sent out the invitation card was the local tyrant of this region. His name was Profound Yin Sect. And the time was exactly 10 days later. The sect master of Profound Yin Sect, Yin Jushuan, personally wrote the invitation letter and invited Chen Rong to participate in the auction held by Profound Yin Sect in Profound Yin Castle 10 days later. This auction could be considered the largest auction event in this domain, and it was thousands of miles in radius. The experts of dozens of castles would participate in the auction. It was rumored that the experts from even further away would come because of this event. As the lord of the Northern Forest Fort, the auction of the Profound Yin Sect naturally wouldn't miss Chen Rong. Xiao Yan had also heard about this Profound Yin Sect when he was resting in Black Sand Castle. It was the largest gang in this region. Of course, the biggest was only relative. In this lawless region, there were many gangs in the area, although many sects were established today. They were destroyed the next day, but there were still many people who were happy to be established. Among them, the Profound Yin Sect could be considered one of the major sects. It had been standing there for several decades without collapsing. It seemed that it already possessed the strength to match some of the major sects. The sect chief, Yin Jushuan, had reached the emperor cultivation. He had many powerful warriors under his command. Although he was the only emperor cultivation, there were naturally many monarch emperor level warriors. With absolute deterrence, he dominated this vast land. In the invitation letter, Yin Jushuan had intentionally revealed that there would be an extremely precious item appearing in the auction, and it would not be any weaker than the heavenly weapon. The abrupt ending of the auction had made the auction even more unusual. Xiao Yan couldn't help but feel tempted when he saw this. Since Yin Jushuan had gone through so much trouble to host such an event, it indicated that a rare treasure that would make people go crazy would appear in the auction. Something like the heavenly core should be an ordinary item. This meant that if he was lucky enough, he would be able to gather all 5 of them. Thinking of this, Xiao Yan's mind spun quickly. A moment later, he couldn't help but look at the invitation card in his hand. A bold idea popped up in his mind. After carefully looking at it, there was no name of Chen Rong on the invitation card. Xiao Yan couldn't help but smile. Without a name, no one would know who the person holding the invitation card was. As long as the person hid his face, even an acquaintance wouldn't be able to recognize him. He could use this invitation card to enter the auction venue. Although he didn't know what kind of special care the person holding the invitation card had, it should be much better than ordinary people. After making up his mind to go, Xiao Yan pondered for a moment and looked at the yawning Xiaoao by the side. This fellow had been yawning ever since he ate a fragment of an eggshell. He didn't know if it was the time for him to rest or not. He could use the invitation card to enter unimpeded, but how could the Xiaoao enter? It was a difficult problem. Seeing Xiao Yan looking at him, the Xiaoao yawned lazily once again, wiped away the tears in its big eyes, and said somewhat tiredly, "Xiao Yan, I'm tired. You can take a look at the rest yourself. I need to rest." After saying that, the Xiaoao's figure flashed and disappeared. It turned into a ray of light and entered Xiao Yan's body in an instant. Seeing the Xiaoao suddenly disappear, Xiao Yan opened his mouth and let out a soft laugh. He never thought that this guy would be able to enter his body after turning into a human. In that case, the problem of this headache would be solved. Stretching his back, Xiao Yan put the invitation card into his clothes. Looking at the boundless desert in the distance, he couldn't help but let out a long roar towards the sky. His heart was overwhelmed with emotions. The next location would be the Profound Yin Castle. Chapter end. Hi guys, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.